everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to either come in person. It's really nice to see you all, or be online. I don't see you, but I know you're there, so hello. As always, check around and make sure that you're in a safe space. And then we'll either start sitting today or lying back. We're going to start with a little bit of breath work. So gentle reminder, you have, total agency over what you do here. So when we're breathing, when we're moving, it's incredibly helpful to be checking in with what you're feeling, both energetically, emotionally, physically. And when you need to stop or back off, please stop, back off, rest. Do what you need to do to feel, safe and grounded. Okay, so we'll start with either being on our backs with our knees bent, or you can come to a comfortable seated place. And if sitting on the floor is uncomfortable, you can always sit in a chair. And we'll give ourselves a little bit of time to settle. Try and let go of the last 30 seconds, minute, and drop a little more into the present moment, into being right here, right now. And transitioning into a place of embodiment, meaning we're coming into our bodies. And we're coming into our bodies in relationship to the space and place, the environment around us. So noting, feeling. Might start with feeling the ground or the earth beneath you, solid and stable, strong. Practicing the art of letting go, of releasing. You can let your bones feel a little heavier into the ground. Ground supporting you. And each one of us feels something different. While it might be similar, you're having your own unique experience. I'm working here a little more with our breathing. So if it feels supportive to you, you can bring a hand or two hands down on your lower rib cage. If you're sitting up, you might bring your thumbs around towards the back of the ribs. If you're on the floor, you could use the ground, the floor, for some back rib feedback. And using the ribs to feel your breathing. So when we inhale, breathing into the rib cage, feeling that lateral expanse. And when we exhale, feeling the ribs draw down and back in. When we inhale, ribs expand, waiting, not forcing, feeling your exhale, Ribs knit or release back in. We'll take about 3 breaths in silence, giving you a chance to feel that, maybe even to hear your breathing. And then a little more understanding your diaphragm, your big breathing muscle. When you inhale, your diaphragm slides down and poofs your belly up. So the navel lifts up. There's some expanse feeling down in the belly. And then when you exhale, the diaphragm slides up, it releases, and your navel draws back. So adding this feeling as you inhale, that expanse of the navel, belly lifts. Exhale, navel draws back. Diaphragm slides up. So how the diaphragm moves connects to the ribs and connects all the way down through the abdominals. With your inhale, ribs expand, diaphragm goes down, belly expands. Exhale, diaphragm slides up, navel draws in, and feeling 2, 3, 4 more breaths. And then when you feel your next full exhale, if your eyes are closed, letting your eyes open. And if you're sitting, we'll all transition onto our backs. And we'll bring your arms up towards the ceiling. And just for a few times here, we're gonna wake up this movement of the arms into the back of the shoulders. So arms will yoke or drop heavy into the back of the shoulders, like you're drawing your arm down to the floor. And you might take your arms a wee bit wider to get that feeling of width and space across the back of the ribs. Feeling your breath. And with your exhale, back of the ribs stay down. So keeping those ribs down with your inhale, opening your arms towards the floor like a T. Full exhale, sweep the arms back up towards the ceiling. And we'll do just 2 more like that. So back of the ribs, nice and wide. Opening across the collarbones and the chest. And bringing your arms back up. And then on this third one, when your arms are out like T's, just let them float a little bit above the ground. And then this is a nice place to really check in. Can you feel a little more connection from the back of the ribs out underneath the shoulder blades through the triceps into the hands? So sometimes, not always, we'll have this habit of holding the arms from the pecs or the chest. So first we want to feel this maybe newer awareness of the back, posterior side, nice and long and strong. And then can we soften through the face and the jaw, maybe soften the tongue and the throat. And just feel this light, easy breath a little more up in your collarbones in your armpits. 3 breaths. Soften where you can, let go where you can. We let go of some tension through the front of those pecs. We'll find some strength across the back, under the shoulder blades, out through the arms. And that was probably more than 3 breaths. So we'll sweep the arms up towards the ceiling. Your choice, interlace the hands or stack your hands and bring your hands behind your head to support the back of your skull and let your elbows float up. Now, when your elbows float up, that might help you feel the back of those ribs with a little more connection into the floor. And then going down through your spine, feeling that lumbar lower curve and the weight of your back hips. Pick one hand, it doesn't matter. And that hand's going to come off the back of your head onto the front lower ribs. So you're going to have one hand behind your head and one hand on your lower ribs. Okay. So for 3 breaths here, your hand on those front lower ribs, it's going to follow the rib cage down and in with your exhale. Coming back to your breathing. It's going to feel the inhale. And then either staying here, or if you'd like a little more challenge, as you feel the exhale, the ribs drawing down and in, kind of let your hand guide those ribs down and in, and then let the shoulders lift up a little bit, doing a little sit up. So this sit up originates here in this abdominal rib connection. And then with an inhale, lowering back down. So trying not to do the sit up so much from your head and your neck. As you exhale, ribs draw down. Might feel those ribs connect to the abdominals. Like a teeter-totter, that part comes down and then your head, neck, shoulders can follow. Inhale, lowering down. 2 more. Feeling, moving from your breath rhythm. Exhale, ribs draw down and in like a teeter-totter. So trying not to lift so much from your neck and your head. The next time you lift up, pause. Holding here with your next exhale, can the ribs knit a little more? Maybe lift the shoulders another millimeter. And then checking in, what's happening in your eyes and your jaw? What's happening in the roof of the mouth? Can you soften and release somewhere? Connect to a little more upper abdominal rib connection. And then inhale, lower down, vertebra by vertebra. Arms can come down by your side, or maybe both hands come to your lower ribs, whatever most comfortable. And then we'll take maybe 15, 20 seconds to come back so we can each have our own experience feeling our breath. So you might feel, the breath in your nose, you might feel the breath in your abdominal belly area or in your chest, feeling a place of breath awareness, and hanging there for a couple more breaths. Full exhale, feeling all the air go out. And then we'll roll up or roll over and we'll come on up to sitting. And then from sitting, we'll come to standing. So you can roll all the way on up if you want. And we'll find a wide stride. So heels will come in, toes will go out, and you can face, if you're in the room, you can face any way you want. So if you want to be on your mat, step wide on your mat. If you want some feet on the carpet, that's great too. All right. So when we stand up, feeling our bodies in space. So your ears a little more back in line with your shoulders. and your shoulders stacking a little more over your hips. Okay. So then you can take your fingers and your thumbs, bring them onto that lateral rib cage. 3 breaths. What do you feel through these little wells into your thumbs as you breathe in and out? The relationship of your breath in your rib cage, lower rib cage specifically. I'm going to follow that movement. So when you feel your ribs go out with your inhale, we'll go down in a sumo. And when you feel your exhale, knit your ribs down and in, we'll come up. So everyone moves from their breathing. Great. 3 more breaths. And this time, go down just enough that you can feel grounded, knowing you're going to be here for a little bit. Say if you had to hold your sumo for a minute or 2. Okay. And if you need to, look down. You want to be able to see your big toes. Okay. So as I look around the room, there's a few of us with our knees kind of buckling in. This is a little extreme. Okay. But these thigh bone here, they need to externally rotate and kind of push out a little bit. And when that happens, you might feel it a little more right back through here. Okay, it shouldn't be so tight that it's uncomfortable. Okay, so we're here. And we're going to slide your hands up to the ribs. Okay, and we're going to move from the rib cage. So we're going to side bend. So as you side bend over to the right, feel your right ribs cut in a little bit, then your shoulder, and then your head. And then come on up, ribs, shoulder, head. Coming back up. So as you go side to side, starting this movement with that abdominal rib connection. Might feel a little different than we normally move. One more to the right. One more to the left, and then we'll meet back in center. And then we'll straighten the legs. Go up and down. So when you feel your inhale, those ribs expand, we'll go down. This time, if you want more challenge, lift your heels a piece of paper. Exhale, ribs draw in, come up. Inhale. Exhale. 3 more, either heels down or heels up, just a tiny little piece of paper. Great, coming all the way on up. And then we'll let the hands stay here at the ribs, soft bend in your knee. 3 breaths, come back. What do you feel in your body when you breathe? Bending your knees a little deeper. All right, we're going to side bend. Now when we side bend, we're going to take your left shoulder forward just a tiny bit to that point where you go, oh, I feel that. And then we're going to come back up. Side bend to the left. Take that right shoulder forward, right to that point where you're like, I feel that. And then come back up. All right. So the trick here, there's a bunch, but this one time today, the trick is to not lead from your head so much. So noticing, right? When you side bend, do you want to lead from your neck and head? Can you lead from your core more? So core, shoulder, head, And then as that shoulder comes, shoulder. Maybe your head doesn't really even move. Side bend. Shoulder comes forward. Great. Can the shoulder come over? Opposite shoulder come forward. Last one. Up to the left. Shoulders stay pretty stacked. And then there's a little rotation. Come on up, see how that feels. Shake it out. Great, arms are gonna come down. 3 breaths. You notice your own experience when you're breathing. Stepping your feet wide. If they're not, you're gonna roll your left leg in a little bit and roll your right leg out. Putting a little more weight into that lower center of gravity down into your legs. Back to that feeling of the ribs breath, okay? So as you inhale, wide ribs, exhale, ribs knit. You feel one more breath like that, and then we're gonna bend and straighten that right leg with that movement. So inhale, ribs expand, right knee bends. Exhale, ribs draw in, right leg straightens. Following your breath rhythm. Last one. Right leg rolls in, right leg rolls out. You're about heel to heel. Feeling that movement in the rib cage. That helps cue your movement. Inhale, ribs expand. Exhale, ribs knit. Fabulous. Coming back up, both feet face more or less straight. 3 breaths. All right, we're just going to tip from the pelvis, okay? So this one's a little tricky, and sometimes I feel a little hard to understand in our bodies. So when we're standing, if we're really tight in the low back, if you're really tight in your hamstrings, there's a good chance that your pelvic bowl is going to have some posterior tuck like this, okay? The hamstrings are tight, they'll pull those sit bones down, and this is kind of extreme. This is probably nobody's real posture, okay? But having an awareness of your pelvic bowl more upright, not tipped back, okay? And not tilted too far forward. So you can put your hands like your wells on your hips. One of my teachers always kind of says, imagine your pelvic bowl's full of popcorn. It's your popcorn bowl, and you don't want to spill the popcorn forward. You don't want to spill the popcorn back, okay? So we're going to start with the front of the hips a little more lifted, and then stabilize through your low back. So when you bend your knees a little bit, especially if you're tight in your hamstrings, your spine doesn't need to move, just at the hips. So we're going to tip forward. I'll get my hands out of the way so you can see not a lot of rounding right now in the low back. So you don't have to tip very far. We want to understand and feel in our own bodies the difference between your pelvis and your low back. Excellent. Couple more. If you feel you're jamming, you feel it's really tight here, bend your knees. It doesn't mean you're not good at this. It just means that you're tight. Tension's okay. We adjust by bending our knees, okay? So then when you tip over, we're gonna pause. and try and refine strength, especially across the back shoulder blades. Try to feel that width that you found across the back of the ribs down into the back of your hips, and take 3 breaths. You might push your hip creases back a little bit. Excellent. Come all the way back up. Let your legs straight. Legs stay wide. Left leg rolls in, right leg rolls out. So taking what we just did in that sumo, put your hands back on your hips. Can you keep your bowl a little more upright? Can you try, even if you're confused, like, oh, am I spilling my popcorn forward or back? Maybe this time you're spilling it out your right hip. So those 2 hip bones a little more level, and then seeing how far you can bend your right knee. And pausing. Then you're going to steer your belly button around towards your right inner thigh a little more. Just like we did. Tip at your hip first. Hip tip. Try not to lead with your head. And then come back up. So sure, your low back might move a little bit, but can you start to understand and feel in your body the difference between your hips and your low back? Excellent. Next time you tip, either your hand or your elbow come down to your knee. Pause. Press that forearm into your thigh bone. Push down, down, down. Good. Reach your left arm out in front of you and maybe stretch it up towards the ceiling. Excellent. Bend at your elbow and bring your U-shaped hook hand back on your rib cage. And feel your breath underneath those hands and those lateral ribs for 2 breaths. Exhale, ribs draw in. We come all the way on up. Right leg rolls in. Left leg rolls out. Pause. Come back to your foundation, feeling that weight nice and strong in your feet. Look back, make sure your back leg's turned in a little bit. Is your bowl upright? Can you keep your bowl upright, not spilling your popcorn forward or back or left or right as you bend your left knee? Steering your belly button around towards your left inner thigh a little bit. Then from the hip, okay? So we pause. This is a really good practice for awareness. Maybe your habit's to lead with your head. I saw some of you go from your head. Hip. Can you feel that left hip bone tip first? And then come back up. Go slow on purpose. 2 more from the hip, hip, rib, shoulder, ear. That's it. Then we tip and your elbow comes down or your hand. Check in with your low back. Strong and stable. You might feel little remnants of that sit up we did. Reach your right arm out and up to the ceiling. Watch your shoulder. Then bring your hands onto your rib. 2 or 3 breaths back into those side ribs. Exhale, ribs knit together. We come all the way on up. One more time. Left leg rolls in a little quicker this time. Right leg rolls out. Feel your pelvic bowl. Get it upright. How far can you bend your right knee without tipping your right hip? Good. So if you're someone who tends to lead with their head, a little more challenging, you can bring your hands behind your head and bring your head back. Remember this sit-up feel where you were pulling your head and your hands had a relationship? So keeping your head back, bending that knee, tip at the hip. So hip, rib, shoulder, right elbow to the thigh bone. Left arm up to the ceiling. Bend the left elbow, hands on your ribs. Pause. Feel your belly button, what direction your belly button is in. You're going to take your rib cage and you're going to spin this bottom right rib a little more up towards the ceiling. Getting a little rotation. Maybe the left arm stays on the ribs or maybe it comes up. Maybes are progressions, 3 breaths. What do you notice when you breathe? Exhale, ribs draw in to come down. We lift up. Right leg rolls in, left leg rolls out. Heel to heel, about the same amount of weight. Pelvis lifts, bend the left knee. If you tend to lead with your head or you want a different challenge, hand behind your head. Tip at the hip, left hip, rib, shoulder, elbow to knee. Right arm up. Bend the right elbow, bring the hand to the ribs. Left ribs spin around. Nice and strong through the low back. 3 breaths. Noticing what you feel in your body breathing. Exhale, ribs draw down and in. We come all the way on up. Keeping your feet wide. Maybe your feet come a little more parallel. You're going to know because you're going to feel it in your hips. So you're going to pay attention. Soft bend in your knee. Okay. So from the hips first, hips, ribs, shoulders, head. Folding forward, coming back up 3 times. For some of us, it's really reprogramming some movement patterns, especially if you're someone who leads from the chest a lot or the neck. It might feel a little odd. This time, you're going to fold all the way over. Maybe start to round in your low back, especially as the shoulders come lower, 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 as your head starts to hang. You need that length in the low back. But you also really need that strength to find the rounding. So wide leg forward fold, hands can be on the floor. If that's straining in your hamstrings too much, by all means, bring your hands up to your hips. There is absolutely no need to overdo this. Inhale, lift your chest. And then we do a little yoga crawl. We walk your hands to the front, the feet to the back, or however you can find tabletop or downward facing dog. And you're going to walk yourself to one of those places, or maybe you prefer a child's pose. And we're going to take 3 breaths. What does it feel like to exhale 3 times? And then we're going to exhale, come down to tabletop. Great. And then just look up this way. So I don't know how this is going for people at home. As I look around here, there's a lot of people with a lot of weight forward in their wrists. One of the biggest complaints I get is my wrists really hurt. It's hard for me to do tabletop. It's hard for me to do downward facing dog. So we don't have a ton of time to adjust and do a lot for that right now. But one trick here, one thing you can do in your dog is when your hips come up, okay, instead of having the shoulders way over the wrists like this, I don't know if you can see me super well back there in the corner, is you're going to bend your knees and you're going to push your shoulders way back, away from the wrists. You can bend your knees and pull, 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 pull back. and try and get, like we did earlier, a little more feeling of weight and strength down into that center of gravity. Low belly, low back strength, hips and leg strength, okay? So down dog's more about getting your low back long, less about your hamstring stretch, okay? So we can try that. You can push up to your downward facing dog shape. Bend your knees a lot. And then push back. Pull the shoulders back out of the wrists. There we go. Your heels can be up. If you have tight hamstrings, don't force your heels down. Honor your tight hamstrings. I'm jealous that you have tight hamstrings. 3 breaths. Then with your third or fourth exhale, we're going to come all the way down onto your belly. So come all the way down to your hands and knees. Lower down with lots of strength. And bring your hands down by your side like you're at the bottom of a push-up. Now, if this hurts your wrists, bring your forearms out underneath your forehead. Tuck your chin and bring your forehead to your forearms. You want to be flat on the top of your feet. And then here, soften. Okay, so I have this mic on, so I can't really get my face too close to the floor. You want to tuck your chin and let your nose come as close to your mat as you can. Like if you had a scratch and sniff sticker there, you could smell it. And with your exhale, soften, check in. Can you soften your face, your forehead? Can you soften your jaw, the roof of your mouth? And soften all the way across your chest. Practicing letting go of that chest grip that we use during the day. So if we can let go of this grip, we're going to have to turn on some back muscles. So now this awareness of your shoulder blades and the muscles underneath your shoulder blades going down your spine into your low back, your extensors, through your glutes into your hamstrings. So pressing the front of your pelvis down, reach your toes straight back, and with straight legs, lift and you'll lower your legs maybe 3 times. Reach, reach, reach. Like if I could walk around the room, I'd come pull on your pinky toes and pull your pinky toes out of your ears. Then you can start to lift your chest a little bit. So as you inhale, chest lifts, legs lift. Exhale, going down. So if you want more challenge, your hands can come down by your sides. Palms can face up. Reach your arms back out of your ears. Go at your own speed for the awareness and understanding of strength through the low back. You don't want to over crank or jam the low back. When you're tired, you rest. We'll do 3 more. And then on the third one, chest lifts, legs lift a little bit. Maybe your arms lift, but your arms only need to lift as high as your hips. They don't have to lift super high. Reach back. Good. Roll your arms in. So you want internal rotation. So if you could roll your arms in, that's going to open the chest. 3 breaths. Long, 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 long from head to toe. And then come all the way down. Put your hands underneath your forehead. And take 3 breaths. Then place your hands down by your lower ribs. Turn on your back strength and your core strength. With an exhale, let your shoulders draw down out of your ears. Knit your ribs and start to push up. So I'm going to come up, 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 up. Now, you might not straighten your arms. You might try to keep that spine long, ribs down and in, navel to spine, shoulders back out of your ears. So it's really easy to be here. Right, you want to push down and pull the arm bones back. Maybe you curl your toes and lift your legs to plank. Then you decide, maybe you come to tabletop or one more child's pose or one more downward facing dog. We'll take 5 breaths. Good. If you're in plank, is your butt as high as your shoulders? Maybe your butt needs to come higher, little higher, little higher. Not too high though, just the right height. Till you're shaking and you're like, why did I come today? And then exhale, lower all the way down. And find a shape. Where can you rest? Maybe you take a child's pose. Maybe it's a tabletop. Maybe you come on your back. Give yourself 3 breaths. And then let's roll onto your back. And then we'll bend your knees and bring your knees up over your hips and your legs up towards the ceiling. Can you feel your tailbone? So find your tailbone, let your tailbone come nice, long and down. So you can feel your tailbone a little bit like a weight. Nice and heavy through the back hips, stretching out a little bit through the back of the legs. 2 breaths. Great. Just let your left knee bend, bring your left foot to the floor. Great. So we're going to do this supine hip stretch. So your right leg will cross over your left thigh bone. If you want a little more, pick up your left knee and your left knee will come up over the left hip. Your right toes will look up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, you can check in. And this stretch always brings a little tension into my chest and my throat. Maybe you're similar. And then we'll exhale and switch sides. So both feet come down and then the left leg comes up and it crosses over the right. And then you can bring your right knee up. Your left thigh bone can exhale and press away from the rib cage a little bit. That's it. Yep. Maybe a little more, looking for a little more space in that left hip. 3 breaths. And then with a 3rd exhale, all the limbs come back down. Let's take a full body stretch. So you can stretch your arms overhead and your legs out. Now in your full body stretch, I just saw a whole bunch of us pop the ribs up. So can you bring, that's it, the lower back ribs down. Get that shoulder stretch and then the arms come down by your side. And then come back and checking in with yourself. How do you feel physically, energetically, emotionally? We always take the last minute 2 minutes to do what we need. So maybe you just want to take a few minutes to rest. Maybe you want to take a couple minutes to do some extra stretching or meditation. If you found the breathing at the beginning of the session helpful, feeling the ribs in relationship with the belly, maybe you do that. I'm going to be quiet and give you time to listen. Your breath will give you feedback. This practice of embodied breathing, being in our bodies. 5 more breaths. What does it feel like to breathe in and out? Not racing the breath, letting the breath come to you. And then when you're ready, starting some really easy movements, maybe wiggling your fingers and your toes, movement in relationship to breathing. Feel free to take a full body stretch or draw your knees into your chest. And we'll slowly roll over and come on up to sitting. And as you come up, if you want to take your arms up and just do a big upper body stretch, feel free. Thanks everyone for showing up today. So good to see you all. Sorry we went a little over. It's really hard for me to look at the clock on time. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone at home for taking your time to be part of this series. Thanks for the support. Have a great week. See you on Friday.